It is the perfect day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, and changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief transitions and the messiness of life long before it arrives and diffuse the fear so we can live fully now. Most of the time we've been in the deep trenches of grief or transitions, we realized how ill prepared we were, and we want to do it differently. And we realize we do not have to do this alone. And so we are connecting, learning, unlearning, and evolving so that we can create a life we love again and teach by example. So I'm honored that you're here and you're spending this time with me today. And I am learning just as much as you are as we move forward. So as always, I'm going to take the time to ground myself, be fully present. I want to forget about all the noise and the things that are going on out there, which I will share with you. And I want to just settle in and be fully present. How I do that is I take 2 slow, deep inhales and exhales. I close my eyes and I just want to land here and be fully present. So I invite you to join me, or whatever ritual works for you, so that you can just be very intentional, set an intention, and let's begin to hear and learn what we need to today. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to close my eyes. I invite you to do the same and take 2 slow, deep breaths. It always feels so good to quiet the noise. So let's get started. And as always, I want to share my message. Well, I used to say with heart and humor. Now I've added the third H, the triple H, the trifecta. I want to always bring my message with heart, humor, and humanness. We allow all emotions, messiness, mistakes, doing it differently next time, and always humor, because not even when it's serious, especially when it's serious, we can allow those little grief breaks, bring a little humor. I always say to people, imagine taking your last breaths, leaving this earth, and you hear laughter and you're surrounded by love and laughter. That's what I would choose. So I'm going to share a fun fact for today. Fun fact. I'm just laughing at myself and how we can always make light of any situation. So as I'm here, my hair is coiffed and I look presentable. Well, here's the truth is that, as I say, life is unpredictable. You just never know what could happen in a day. The night before last, our son came into our room at 11 o'clock and said, "Dad, we don't have any water." What? And so whatever happened, there's a problem with our well outside, and it is winter, so it's not easy to get to. So we've been without running water for a couple of days. So we are kind of living camp style, where we're going and filling these big buckets and buckets of water in the bathroom to flush the toilet. And you know what? We're making it work. We're laughing. We're, walking around with our little cups of water. I'm like, don't waste the water, and doing what we have to do. So hopefully by my next show, I'll have had a wonderful shower and we have running water again. In the meantime, we're living camping style. And we've had many wonderful neighbors and friends and family who said, you can come and shower at our house, which we may have to start doing. Although again, it's winter. So I'm just going to wait and see. And I'm going to cross my fingers that it all works out today. There's my fun fact for today. So let's begin. Last episode, we talked about forgotten grievers. And it's interesting because I've been churning ever since and thinking, wow, there's so many people I forgot to think about, to mention in that time. And because I was taking the blinders off, looking around at my community and saying, wow, when we think of forgotten grievers, those who immediate family members who are surrounding someone who died or is, divorce, diagnosis, job loss, whatever it may be, we think of them. And we may not think of the supporters around, neighbors, family, friends, part of their community, coaches, and so many other people who may also be grieving deeply and thinking, why am I grieving? I'm not that close to that person. And it doesn't matter. If someone has impacted your life, or a situation has impacted your life, somebody was killed tragically and you didn't even know them, and yet you just feel that ache in your heart. You may be a forgotten griever, and it's always okay and wonderful that you are grieving, because that means you care and you love and you're concerned and your heart is aching, perhaps for that other family. So many of us are forgotten grievers at one time or another in our homes or in our lives. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. I feel that many times forgotten grievers are those who maybe caused an accident, not intentionally, but they caused an accident on the highway, in whatever, if they were distracted and something happened and somebody died or was injured because of that accident, and everyone surrounds that person, the victim, as we call the person who was injured or died. And of course, and here's that person who maybe made a mistake. Maybe it was ice and they couldn't help it, whatever it may be. Are we supporting them as well? What about a family who, very challenging, somebody who intentionally hurt someone else or killed someone else, hurt people. And that person may be going to jail, maybe whatever it may be. Imagine what it's like for their family and their loved ones who can't even believe someone they loved that was capable of this, and the guilt and the remorse. What about other people in an accident and somebody died and they survived, that survivor guilt? My beautiful, wonderful friend, John Westhaver, who was in a horrific accident as a teenager, and four of his friends, there were four of them, and all the friends died, and he survived, although he had many, 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 many surgeries, severe burns. And he chooses to be a voice for change, for safety, and for helping people to realize that, as that survivor guilt, it's like, yes, and you survived. You didn't choose this, you didn't choose the circumstances, and you survived. And so now what? And we all can create a life worth living again. Whew. Forgotten grievers, very, very challenging. And so many of us have been forgotten grievers at one time or another. So I invite everyone to just kind of, sit back, reflect, and keep your eyes open for forgotten grievers in your community, or times you have been. Which brings me to today, talking about buried and carried grief. It goes sort of hand in hand often. My beautiful friend Maria Kleevkov, who created the Healthy Mourning Revolution, mourning with an, MOURNING, not like good morning. And she is this beautiful soul. She studied with Dr. Alan Wolfelt, who studied with Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And she is the wonderful human who introduced this language for me. Grief, that internal feeling of sadness, mental, physical, emotional reaction to loss, transitions, and change. Internal mourning is that expression, allowing our grief externally. And we'll talk more about that. But buried and carried grief is grief that we've never expressed or allowed. We never allowed our mourning. We just buried it deep down inside. Perhaps because we were a forgotten griever and nobody even noticed that we were really struggling because they were struggling too. Perhaps we just, it was so devastating and we were so ill-prepared. We didn't have coping skills and strategies or a belief about life and death that could help us manage this. So it was too painful. So we just pushed it down. And here's the thing, that buried grief doesn't go away. We carry it like a big bag of rocks, boulders, just so heavy. And we don't recognize it through our lives because we perhaps become alcoholics, workaholics, or very angry, or a very short fuse. And when all of these, to me, those are the red flags, right? Hello, I'm struggling here. And yet most of us would say, geez, Joe's always so cranky, or Cindy, she's very irritable, or, she always has this chip on her shoulder. Well, that chip could be carried grief, buried and carried grief, and it's just so deep down inside that you don't even notice, or you don't even realize that that is what you're carrying. And again, in our society, we don't even realize that we grieve many things: loss, transitions, change. There's grief in good transitions: moving, having children, leaving home, going to school, all of those things. And you feel like, oh, I should be happy right now. I shouldn't be having these feelings. Your feelings are your feelings. Your feelings demand to be expressed or repressed. Ooh, I like that. Grief demands to be expressed or repressed, right? And that's what we do. We push it down. And what does that cause? Mental, physical, emotional problems, baggage. It doesn't just go away. And the beautiful thing is, when we allow ourselves to mourn, to express, no matter how long ago it was, no matter how long ago, whether it was divorce, diagnosis, a miscarriage, a failed relationship in high school, being bullied, all of those things that, we feel like, I'm an adult now. I don't need to bring that up. Why would I bring that painful time up? Why? Because you're unknowingly carrying it. And the beautiful thing is that it is never too late to mourn, to create perhaps a ritual, a ceremony. And we're going to talk more about expressive mourning, allowing those hard feelings. Because here's the thing, we are all in this together. We are here because we are meant to be here, whether our circumstances, no matter what our circumstances of our birth, no matter what we have survived, we are here because we are meant to be here. We have value because we matter. We have value. We matter because we exist. And we can create change in our own lives by acknowledging and allowing our expressions of sadness, guilt, remorse, regret, whatever we are carrying, to be the best version of ourselves. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the old be strong for everyone. Don't bother people with your feelings. Oh, I don't want to bother them. We are human. And we really, truly must get back to acknowledging and allowing our humanness. I have done this work, and it's continuous. We're all a work in progress. I have gone back into my past and thought about things that I sort of, yes, I've acknowledged it, but I didn't really truly feel, like just really feel the deep sadness, the suffering I felt at that time. Oh yes, I told myself I was acknowledging it. I'm not pretending it away, but I didn't allow those hard feelings. And when I did, let me tell you, the floodgates opened wide. And I was a hot mess. And I cried and cried and cried and cried. And my mom and I have had those conversations, and we've cried and cried and cried. And then we hugged and hugged and hugged. And it doesn't mean it's, oh, I've expressed all this, I'm never going to feel these hard feelings again. Of course not. I promise you that buried and carried grief, your load lightens. The grip grief may have on you and you don't even know it, just kind of loosens as you allow your feelings, as you realize, wow, kind of realize I was forgotten griever. I was grieving. I didn't even realize it, or nobody realized it. Or when you acknowledge that someone else, you know what, you're probably really struggling about this situation. Or when you just sort of unpack that buried and carried grief, imagine being the example to others. Say, this happened a long time ago, and a lot of people told me to just forget about it, and I realized I was carrying it around. And so I expressed my feelings, I acknowledged my grief, I mourned, and wow, my load is lighter. What a beautiful, beautiful teaching for others by your own example. Whew, it's a heavy topic, isn't it? I know. And I would love for you to share. I would love for you to share with me some of the stories, some of the buried and carried grief you've discovered just by being aware, just by taking a little more notice. And I also invite you to sit with this and, just sort of let this marinate a bit, because it's a lot. Perhaps you've done this work and you needed a nudge to do a little more. Or maybe you've never even heard these expressions before. And here's the thing. It's never too late to start to do things differently. So for now, I'm going to leave you with that. And I thank you from the very bottom of my heart for spending this time with me. I know these conversations are not always easy. So whenever it feels too heavy, whenever it's just too sad and you need a little break, just give yourself a break. Give yourself a break away. Think of us with our camping and our pails of water. Get some toys, put on a silly nose, whatever it may be. Give yourself a grief break. Lean into it. And know that I will always be here for you. And of course, you can go to my website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. Many, many resources, a book, our programs, the IJustShowedUp bracelets. Join the movement and let's be in this together. Let's create our compassionate communities wherever we may be. So for now, I thank you again. I am so grateful for you. Lots of gratitude. And my call to action, as always, If you want to be able to just show up for others, if you want to be able to unpack that buried and carried grief and acknowledge forgotten grievers, my call to action is always plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thank you, my beautiful friends. I love you. I appreciate you. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.